For many years, I wondered why African fashion seemed so popular across the world, and yet it was so difficult for people to be able to access beautiful contemporary African fashion made by African designers, made on the African continent. So I started to look at some of the challenges that was making it more difficult for African designers and locally made African creative products to find their way to the international market. We have challenges with lack of locally produced fabric.
Africa produce almost everything in terms of raw materials for textile and the cotton and the garment industry. And this is very important. When you go around, you see the African capacity production in cotton, a whole industry to produce even such kind of fabric.
We also have challenges with production facilities.
Creating contemporary fashion in Africa, I think, is intimately tied to the question of producing at scale.
We are certainly going to shift more and more to large-scale manufacturing to achieve economies of scale, but at the same time, organizing the production on a chain.
For a company or a brand to stay longer at the markets, it needs to be competitive. And competitiveness is not only about price, it's also about that quality.
To serve the international market, African designers need access to world-class production facilities that make great quality garments.
Around a new wave of African designers and producers really integrating an understanding of the contemporary needs of modern customers, both in Africa and in the broader world, with a real understanding of the production and value chain of the fashion industry.
The other challenges revolve around distribution. How do you get fabric that is made in Ghana, manufactured in South Africa or Rwanda into a garment and sold in Australia, the United Kingdom, or the United States?
In the network of distributors, all these are things that we need to work out for us to sustain it, to make sure we are competitive.
There are many benefits to having a strong local fashion industry here in Africa. Fashion by its very nature is labor intensive, and so it creates jobs.
These big investors are providing jobs to our people. It's not common that you will get an investor who can hire more than 300 people at the same time.
Those, for example, who'd like to develop labor-intensive industries and need to recruit a significant number of people which need to get very quickly skills to become productive. The government of Rwanda committed to take this part of the share.
We was planning 6 months for training, but in July, we're already starting to make export in China. This is why I believe the workers, they work very hard and they understand quickly.
Kisua is a classic example of this in that they are proceeding from a very particular understanding of how they build a brand, a reputation, and a positioning in the market, and not just stopping there and potentially doing what a lot of other people do, which is producing outside of the continent with some local design elements factored in, but starting to build indigenous production capacity.
These are some of the challenges, in addition to access to capital, that make it difficult for designers to grow businesses that can serve international consumers.
Like AGOA, where we have a quota-free, duty-free access, particularly to textile and the other products. But we have also the same market access to big European market. So I think these are important opportunities for Africa.
People are interested. They are interested because we have that know-how, especially in designing something which is very different from other parts of the world.
aspects of African art, culture, and expression have gained popularity around the world, but it hasn't really translated into African brands getting that access.
There are more than 1 billion people on the African continent, yet not a single international fashion brand comes from Africa. This is changing with the capital investment and human talent that is being attracted into the industry. The challenges that have been preventing the growth of the industry are being addressed. And I don't see why within the next 10 years, we will not have at least $1 billion company that comes from the continent.